We are live action. Another episode from the hood to the hill with myself, the Black Anglo-Saxon. But before we go ahead and get started, if you want to reintroduce yourself, you can go ahead, and if you want to jump right into it, we can do that too.
Yeah, man, my name is great. I got in next week's I did my solo podcast, but there is a great presents a dichotomy. There is the great presents the dichotomy and dichotomy of a man. Everybody got multiple sides and multiple mindsets, and we all embody good and bad. So I'm gonna explore those things on my podcast.
Cool. So we're gonna start it off, man. The illusion of achievement. And the question that I want to ask to everybody today is, what happens to a society when the only way to stand out is to burn out? And I think that's a huge question for myself, and you can kind of pivot off of me however which way you want to. It's just because I've had episodes and I've had conversations here. And I wanted to kind of talk about that because of the fact that I talk about hustle culture a lot, and I talk about, the working 2-3 jobs, not to actually get ahead, but because it's becoming a necessity. And so I thought that was just an interesting way to kind of approach it, because it's not so much as people are even standing out anymore. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. That has just kind of become the bar. So like these astronomical things, or these things that we used to in the past kind of take as something that is exceptional, has become the standard. So for example, like starting a business or meeting a certain threshold of return on investment, or reaching a certain part in your career, like getting to the C-suite, the executive suite. All of these things used to kind of be a feat to be chased, and to be, once you got to a certain point, it was like, I made it moment, right? But right now, we live in the kind of environment where all of these things have been normalized to such an extent, and because we have been able to be inundated with it in all throughout the day, whether it be through social media, regular traditional forms of media, and just maybe knowing people in these echo chambers, it's normalized. And I just want to kind of hear your thought as it relates to it, because like I told everybody, the conversation was kind of shared from you, and I just kind of was sparked and inspired by it, and just wanted to take it that way. But let me know what your thoughts on it was, in terms of the question, like what happens to a society when the only way to stand out is to burn out, and you can just kind of go off how you want.
I think largely is because of social media, and a lot of people are performative on social media, and a lot of people are projecting things. It's almost like a persona. Like everybody is not being themselves; they're being a brand to a degree. You know what I mean? So it's like they kind of branded themselves. So everybody is successful now. Everybody is a critic. Everybody is a hustler. Everybody is a business person. And you don't see, people don't understand when it comes to being a business person, it comes with failures. But a lot of people just show their highlights, and they just show the good side of things. And also it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, keeping up with the Joneses. You know what I mean? Like you said, like it came to a point where it was like, people would start off from humble beginnings and then have
Mm-hmm.
aspirations to go to a certain point. Now it's almost like you going from nothing to something. You know what I mean? You the success story overnight. And a lot of it is performative and not really true. It's not the true, like also failure is a part of the journey. You get what I mean? And a lot of people don't document that or show that. So, like you said, I think, like you said, with the hustle, the burnout culture, even with the thing we was talking about, the histrionics of like in the urban community. Well, everything is so performative and theatrical and over dramatic and dramatized. And I feel like that comes from like a lack of emotional intelligence versus like actually being smart and moving smart versus performing a certain way and projecting yourself a certain way. Like you say, a lot of like when we was talking about earlier before, a lot of things is just about, it's like performance art.
So yeah, and that's the illusion part that I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit more and a little bit further, because heavy on the illusion, right? And I want to
Mm,
drill down on it because one, if we want to define success in a traditional way that most people do when it comes to the superficiality of it, even when we talk about the money, the accolades, the access, and the perceived power, because power is a perceived construct. Like you never
mm,
really have as much power as you think you do, right? But with that being said, even if I concede to that standard, right?
mm,
People are engaging in this competition to not really even achieve that, right? Because you will have people who, let's talk about content creators and influencers, right? And keep it in that field.
mm,
They'll have the illusion or the optics of what it looks like to be success when you talk about the number of followers, etc, um, and the visuals, or what people like to call the aesthetic, like the clothes, the look, everything else
mm,
that go with it.
mm,
But it doesn't necessarily translate into the actual numbers and dollars. It doesn't translate into the wealth. And a lot of the times, it doesn't even, in some cases, we've seen translate into being able to sell a product. And what I mean by that is we had an example of a person who had, like, remember that incident? I want to say they had like 100,000 followers, but when they made and put out a sale for like one of their products, they weren't able to sell the actual product itself, and it
mm,
flopped. And we see
mm.
that even in the concert space where we have these artists who have heavy
Stream.
amounts of streams, but when it comes time to get butts and seats, they aren't necessarily able to perform that.
They can't scale
And
their business.
yeah, and I think that goes even more into the illusionary portion of it. But I think the illusionary portion of it causes this kind of sociopathic or anxiety of sorts, because you have people who are selling the optic, but then you also have people who are chasing the optic. And in between that, everybody's getting lost.
Mm,
So, and what I mean by that is you have people on one end who's like, I know it's fake, right? I know that I don't necessarily have everything. Then you have people who, because it's being sold as something real, are chasing it. And in that, you have this gap where people are striving towards it, and in striving towards it, they're missing out on building real stability. Where you have people who are or have been, like Dame Dash, for example, clowning 9 to 5 workers and saying that 9 to 5s are trash, because he isn't the only one. That's just, he is the
he
example of
he
a,
he spear he spearheaded that though. He
yeah, but
spearheaded
he's
it.
the example of that culture though. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not the only one, but it has taken on a body of work of its own, where 9 to 5 is something that's being looked down on, where you can actually build stability out of that. And so it's like we live in this crazy kind of environment where we have people burning out from one end to nothing.
I wanted to respond to that, especially with the Dame Dash, because I think that's a good example to use. So when Dame Dash said that interview, that happened in 2015 on Breakfast Club. I remember like yesterday, March 2015. And he basically put a battery in a lot of people's backs where he was basically saying, you know, this is what to me it is from my perspective and looking at Dame Dash personality type, because I've been around people like that in the hood, uh, family members. It's like a narcissist, and I know this term narcissists get thrown around a lot, but he has, to me, he shows signs of a narcissistic personality disorder, and I'm gonna tell you why. When he was
Mm-hmm.
telling people that you're basically you're corny if you have a boss, if you might as well call a man daddy and things of that nature. It's always a pecking order in life.
Always.
Nobody just comes out and just rule everything. LeBron James has a boss. Adam Silver is his boss. You know what I'm saying? Tom Brady had a boss, Roger Goodell, with the NFL record. LeBron's a billionaire. They still answer to somebody. All that to me was Dame was trying to overcompensate because he know he's not as successful as he used to be. So it's almost like a manipulative tactic to try to shame somebody like Jay-Z to say, "Oh, he works for somebody though. He worked for this person or that person. He's a sellout. He's Uncle Tom. I'm self-made." And that concept is almost like a Jedi mind trick to convince yourself that you're this person who got it on your own. You don't need the white man's money. But the thing about it, most business people leverage other people's money to get business. You know what I'm saying? They usually rarely put their own money up. They get somebody to invest in it and they break bread and things of that nature. And then when Dame was in his heyday, he was doing business with Def Jam and Leo Cohen and Kevin Lyles. And these people were, I won't say they were his bosses, but it was people that he had to answer to and work with. So when he was putting out that rhetoric was dangerous because you see, the thing, this one I learned, I feel like a lot of times people don't like success for whatever reason. So it's easy to vilify the successful person like a Jay-Z. You know, it's like they join the Illuminati. So you have a subset of people who will make they will make Dame the hero because it's almost like they living vicariously through him. You know what I mean? And they living vicariously through him because they feel like, oh yeah, Dame is the real dude. And this thing about black being synonymous with being struggling and getting
Yeah.
out the mud, and it's like I don't know, man. It just keeps me. It's flabbergasted because it's like, why do we feel like we have to be synonymous to this struggle angle or this thing about just, you know, I don't get
So
it, man.
I think so. I get it. I understand it because it's historical, right? So if you take
Mm,
the Harlem Renaissance, if you take slavery, if you take Jim Crow, if you take any one of these particular eras when we talk about Negroes, everything has been built around struggle. Everything has been built around resilience and overcoming. And I don't necessarily have an issue with that in particular, but I think what has happened is we have taken the superficiality of those things and tried to monetize and perform them in a way where they now lack substance, which is where you see the quote unquote aesthetic culture coming from, where you'll have people who want to look a certain way or they use certain language and jargon, or like to your point, talk about being self-made and selling that as a product. And even to the point of we've gotten into a point in our community where even our help, the help that somebody is trying to give the community, has to be sold and packaged in a way where it is able to be consumed, because we have fell in this weird twilight zone where the struggle itself is being
romanticize.
repurposed and sold to us when our lives are already struggle. We don't need it to be sold to us. But to your point, I understand it because it is another Jedi mind trick of the structures that have been captured. Because to your point, everybody has bosses, but the reason that people don't talk about it in that way is because it's not as sellable, it's not as sexy, it's not as
Mm,
marketable. And so what has happened is, I just did a video, I haven't released it yet, but in people doing the whole it is what it is and having that mindset, everything around that becomes that much more but
mm.
everything around that has become that much more entrenched as a result. And so when we find ourselves in these spaces of whether it's burnout culture, crash out culture, or hustle culture, it's all based and predicated around having that one shot, because it's the lack of healthy competition. It's the lack of a real meritocracy. Because when
So,
you only get that one shot and you only get that one moment to be able to strike while the iron is hot, the way that you move and navigate that is in a very kind of reckless way. And you use whatever resources and tactics that you feel like you have at the moment. And I feel like using and keeping Dame Dash as the model, he had what he had. He had Rockefeller, he had that kind of edge. And so packaging it in that way was the way that he was going to try to pivot.
Two things I wanted to ask you. So the thing about Dame, right? The thing people don't understand about business is that, or when you've done it in a company, your social skills is just as important as your business skills. How
Mm-hmm.
you talk to people, how you approach people. Now, for instance, let's say somebody like Steve Jobs, who people said that was high maintenance personality. Basically, turns he was an asshole.
Yep.
But but the thing about Steve Jobs is that he had some type of value where, because this is what I'm learning about life. If you could be an asshole, but if you have some type of value, people will overlook that, or they would take your personality to deal with. Now with somebody like Dame Dash, who in the music business, he was a great music mind, but
Yep.
he went as far as his artists went. So when they realized, look, we can deal with Jay directly, we don't have to deal with you. And then once it started getting out that basically we don't need you, we can deal with Jay directly, we can do Jay directly. You burn those bridges with the relationship, especially not knowing how to pivot. Now, I'll give Dame in his mid 20s to early 30s that demeanor and attitude. But for you to be 50 and seem like you're getting relatively worse, that shows you not self-aware, you're not aware, and you don't know how to pivot and understand, like, you got to let this stick go. Get out. Basically, he's in his own way. And the second thing I want to ask you, when you said about healthy competition, what do you mean in the sense of like healthy competition? Like, can you
So
break that down?
yeah, so it's kind of two pronged when I talk about healthy competition. So, and I'll use our community because I think it's more important to help build that bridge for us. First thing is we have to have competition in a way where we are not burning not only ourselves out, but burning each other out, right?
Mm,
And what do I mean by that? So here in DC, you'll have 50 million events, right? And to be competitive, you have to make it to all of those events to be in people's faces to get a certain level of credibility, right? But
mm,
as a result of having all of those events, because everybody is trying to vie for the actual territory and space, we are burning our resources out, which is the human capital. Because by the time, let's say, 10 people move around, you burnt out. You done. You tired. So you can't really put anything into any other place. The CBC last week was a great example, right? Instead of using those spaces to create places to organize, we had people who were prioritizing parties. And the reason that becomes an issue because in those parties, it's a competitive process in that because they're trying to vie for attention, clout, etc. Now, with that, you have people who expended that resource, that finite resource of human energy. You've used them in that way. And now, because they didn't actually apply whatever skill set they had to get them into these spaces, because whether they're attorneys, whether they're social scientists, whatever background they come from, we could have used that skill set in a different way because human energy is finite. Like you have a particular skill set. Instead of creating a space where I'm forcing you to move around in a way where you're trying to gain access, I will create less of that competitively, but use your skill set in a different way to have a better overall impact. That's one. Two, the other way that we have to be healthily competitive, and this is something that I also and always challenge the elders to do, is that instead of, for example, let's take the podcast space. Instead of everybody creating podcasts, right? Everybody's not built to be the greatest speaker. Everybody's not built to traffic in ideological spaces. But we have elders and we have people who everybody is now flooding into a particular market, into a particular space, instead of asking, how can I help you be more impactful as a person who does this or has been doing this? It's the same thing that was with fashion, right? Instead of everybody making their own fashion lines and shirts, let's say, okay, we got 10 fashion designers who really understand fashion design, who really understand the elements from ground up of creating a product to the top, to the finish line, right? So instead of doing that, let's create people who understand supply chain. Let's create people who understand being a seamstress. Let's be competitive but complementary, not competitive to the point where now we got 50 fashion brands and it's oversaturated.
You know
Because
why
the
though?
thing is, Because the thing is that we're in a space where money, even though it seems infinite, is a finite resource. Because the problem that we're facing now as a whole country is that the processing that we're having to get out of these spaces of deficits and debts is that we're creating it in a vacuum. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with how we're choosing and approaching our nature and being competitive. I'm not saying that people can't compete with each other, but what I am saying is that we have to be strategic in how we move forward and compete with each other. Like my bros, they got food places. I'm not a food guy. I'm not about to try to hop in there because it's like, oh, the food stuff is taking off. No. How can I help my bro doing food find more connections? How can I plug him in with more political people? How can I create and build more spaces to
But
get him more traction?
it alludes to what you said though, the hustle culture and the hustle mentality. That's what basically, and it alludes to that because see, this the thing, celebrity too, man. That's I think celebrity has done a lot damage to us too because everybody wants to be in the spotlight, not knowing. I have a saying I always say. I say I don't care if I get a ring being a player, a general manager, a coach, a water boy. I just want a ring. So it's like whatever role I have to play to get that ring, to get that success, I'm willing to play. But a lot of people are not willing to do that because it's almost like you said, it's the quick the get rich quick scheme or feel like, okay, this is what everybody's doing. Like you said in the podcast space. I started doing podcasts 2016 when it was relatively a newer thing, especially amongst regular folks. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's everybody has a podcast and everybody has opinion. Now, I don't knock nobody for what they do, but it does get watered down. You know what I'm saying? And everybody is not. And then once people see that there's actually work behind this, they either they'll be hot for a minute or then they'll just fall off because it's not the instant gratification. It's not the process. And what I'm learning about anything you build, anything that you want to scale, you got first of all, you got to get accept that you're going to get rejected. You got to
Mm-hmm.
accept failure. You got to accept failure and accept that you might have to tweak or pivot your idea, keep the same premise, but you may have to do that. And a lot of people can't deal with that because, like you said, like you just admitted, you know who you are. You said I'm not a food guy, so why would I open up a food truck? But again, like you said, it's the hustle mentality because instead of building a product or brand, they chasing the money. They're attached to the outcome. And the one thing I've done that's helping me with everything, even with my weight loss journey, with what I'm doing with my brand, I'm attaching myself from the outcome. I'm not even focused on the outcome. I'm focused on the work at hand first. I'm putting the courage in front of the horse. And I think a lot of times people are doing it for the wrong reasons. And there's nothing wrong with having money and wanting to monetize
Nothing.
something, but you have to have the product. You have to have the business this lucrative that could bring that in. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think to your point, it's for me, the question is also too always about, again, as a political guy, I'm just always thinking about how we are doing this strategically, collectively. That's
Mm-hmm.
my mind always just goes back to that because it's like you said, yeah, if it's just about money, but if it was just about money, we'd be good already. Because it's people with
Right, right.
money, but it's how
Mm-hmm.
you get the money, what you want the money for, and how do you replicate the ecosystem? Because that's what we're not creating in hustle culture. And that's what we're not getting in the lack of healthy competition.
Right.
Because
Right.
if we're not creating ecosystems and pipelines, becomes irrelevant because
Right.
we're not passing down any blueprints. We're not passing down anything that can
There's no
be,
systems in place.
yes. And that's what's more important for me than the actual outcomes, because it's like, okay, take our elders. Our elders came up in a time, in a moment where they were able to do things. But none of that information, none of that knowledge, none of that general knowledge is being passed down. So we're having to literally start from scratch because our elders are competing with us in an unhealthy way. They're not, again, it is okay to compete, but they're not supposed to be in the same spaces competing with us in the same dynamic for the same geographical footprints. And I'll use
Do you think?
politics as, go ahead.
Do you think it come from a scarcity mindset?
Yes, it comes from a scarcity mindset, and it also comes from not wanting to realize and acknowledge the actual truth and the reality of the collapse within the group itself. Because I'm not necessarily going to pin it all on them, because I understand why. They're doing it because they have to. It's like that 60, 70-year-old lady who thought she was going to retire, but she's working at Walmart competing with that 17-year-old now, not because she absolutely wants to, but because she has to. And it's the same way up and down the ladder. Eleanor Holmes Norton ain't staying in office because she necessarily wants to. It's just the only way that she can feel like she has some type of level of access and some type of level of influence, because there was no influence, no systems, no pipelines built while they were doing what they were doing. So once they lose that access and the title, it's done, because there was no successors. There was no transition set up. There was nothing put in place to say, I'm going to leave. My goal, I'm working myself out of job. By the time I get 50, I need to have somebody my age or younger, about 5, 10 of them coming in ready to punch me out the way.
Exuberant. You want that youthful exuberance, man.
Because again, you is where the warriors are. If we're really going to be strategic about fighting this fight, we got to understand that, look, y'all at an age where y'all can't really put in the actual work that needs to be done, not because you're not smart, but because certain work, again, energy is finite. I'm not saying that. Nature says that.
You need old men for counsel.
Exactly. And again, that's not me, because a lot of people personalize it and they feel like they're being attacked. And it's like, look, I'm dealing with laws of nature.
Nature, yeah.
Nature tells me that, again, even in my youth, I have ignorance because I'm fresh out the womb. As soon as you fresh out the womb, you don't know nothing. You're just trying, right? But it's also, and I had made another video about what is being poured into us. And as a result, they are literally pouring into us what is actually defeating us, because they're the very ones who are just attaching the money to the outcome. And so you get the right, people talk about, oh, why don't we get the rise of these dramatic displays, right? Of whether it be crash outs or whatever. It's because we are creating a culture where, again, like I said, people are trying to strike when the iron is hot. People are trying to create these environments where it's NFL or bust, it's NBA or bust, it's millionaire or bust. We're leaving out a whole body of work, because even in how people campaign, right? Nobody is telling people that, oh yeah, the policy that I'm proposing to people, or the issue that I'm trying to solve, is going to take me maybe 8 years to solve it. They'd rather lie, because the people have been conditioned to such a point of hustle, bustle, and crash out culture that you can't tell them that, because they've been lied to so much that they can only perceive that I need it quick, I need it fast. But that's not how any of this works.
Yeah, that's not reality, man. It's and it's also too. When I used to hustle, right? I'm gonna tell you some real stuff, right? I felt when I first like was hustling, and I talked about this on the Troy Ave thing. I felt prior to that, I felt kind of invisible, but when I started getting the money, I felt seen. I felt like I was good at something. I felt like that it gave me this pseudo confidence of like, yo, like I felt like a fraternity member. Like I felt like a part of a fraternity, niggas selling drugs. People know who I am. People knew what I had, knew what type of product I was using. The attention from the girls, just the monetary, the superficial with the clothing. And I make this point. Do you remember a store called Up Against the Wall
I
back in
do.
the day?
The
So
love against the wall.
I used to go up. Listen, so Up Against the Wall, nigga. I should have had an endorsement deal with LRG. I was an LRG, nigga, I was an LRG model, right? And I say this to say, every day I would go cop something like if I had to go to here comes to the performative and superficial aspect of it. We go to the go-go. So you know when I go to the go-go, I gotta have a new outfit on. I can't wear the same shit I wore a week ago. So
Yep.
I'm buying this all this LRG stuff. And I remember I had like on my dress, I had a picture back on MySpace. I had like a stack of LRG tags, and I was like popping tags, right? So I thought about this, right? Up Against the Wall is not even around no more. It's out of
Nope.
business, and LRG is not popular like it used to be. All of that money into a liability. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm thinking like I could have took that money and could have got some vending machines. I could have took that money and just did something that where I could have returned on my investment, and it might have been slow, but I was just living for the right now and the hustle and bustle culture. Because when you're not used to having money and you get money, you don't know what to do. Because my thing was, this was my mentality. Oh, I'm gonna get it. I'll spend this. I'm gonna get it back right back. So it's like you become this like hamster on a wheel. So the illusion is like you got money, but if you making $50,000, now mind you, if I'm making $60,000 a year at 21 on the streets and it's just cash, that seems like a lot because you're not used to nothing. You don't really have the responsibilities. You don't have the overhead, but it comes with a lot of pain. It comes with a lot of setbacks. There's no insurance in it. You're going to take losses. So it's like this illusion that you get that because the other people around don't have as much money as you either or resources. So you look heroic to them. But when you look back at it, a lot of it was fluff. A lot of it was pseudo. A lot of it was nothing really concrete. You get what I mean? It was nothing concrete. So, just like you said, just the performative aspect, trying to keep up with the Joneses. Robert, like what you were saying about Miss Norton, like and the thing with her, I think a lot of the times when people are like that in a position, it's almost like the ego, in a way, don't want to
Mhm.
let them to go because their identity is so connected to that title. So it's like it's like if I do go into transition or pivot, what I'm going to do? They might feel invisible because this is so. Instead of like having that self awareness, saying, you know what, it's time for somebody else to take the reins. Let me bring somebody else along. Let me maybe mentor them because they're so stuck in their own. It's like they're such a fanboy for their own self. They can't just part with that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like, they
And
can't
that's
part
the
with it.
trap. That's the trap. And
Exactly.
that's why I
Exactly.
never ever attach myself to titles in that way. People always hear me joke about, look, I'd be the janitor. Because I'm still gonna be
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm still gonna be the
Mm-hmm.
guy who love and enjoy politics. I'm still gonna be the guy, if you see me walking down the street, I'm gonna wrap your ass up for like 2 hours about some type of socio-political jump. I don't need the title to be who I am. I am
Mm-hmm.
who I am. And to
Something
your
you're
point,
passionate about.
yeah, a lot of people in these spaces are not
Mm-hmm.
passionate about the thing that they do. And like you said, it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes a title, and because the access that comes with it, because a lot of people care more about the being invited to events and getting reserved seat, and then they care about
CB,
actually
CB,
fixing certain.
CB, CBC.
No, literally, because again, people feel however they want to feel about it. I said what I said because look, if you can't tell me that everything is on fire, and that, you know, we dealing with authoritarianism, and we dealing with fascism, and we dealing with all of these things that predicate alarm ringing words and language that you're using, but then we're going to party a whole week. Then we're, because it's not just one whole week, because you got to prep and plan that whole week. And then you are again extracting resources from those very people.
Yeah.
And this is the culture of what you set the tone for. And so you're pouring that into a group of people, and you wonder why we don't have any results, because again, we aren't building, and we don't have real integrity in our achievement. People just want what they want for the superficiality of it. We aren't building ecosystems. We don't have mentorship. We don't have pipelines. And I'm not talking about the mentorship, because people are going to see this and they're going to be like, oh, well, we got mentors, you need to just look. No, I'm not talking about mentors in a way where y'all are grooming people to go into spaces and kiss the ring, and y'all are grooming people to be conditioned to take abuse. That's not the type of mentorship that I'm talking about, because a lot of that does happen. A lot of that happens where you'll get groups and all of these leagues and all of these different fraternities and sororities who condition whole groups and bodies of people to uphold the status quo. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about back channels where we actually sitting around creating spaces where it's like the older generation, like, nah, we gonna drink the Kool-Aid so y'all don't got to. We gonna throw y'all over Mount Olympus and let y'all do what y'all do. Y'all not gonna have to make the same sacrifices. We kissed the ring because we had to, but y'all ain't about to kiss the ring, because kissing the ring we knew was stupid. We just did it because it was a necessity to survive at the moment. We not building those type of pipelines. We not having those type of mentorship conversations. And if we are having those, not even. I'm removing it away from politics in general. I'm talking about just complete ideology, the way that people are thinking, the way that people are bred. Because I hear a lot of conversations about, oh, well, this group is unprotected, this group ain't being protected, or this is happening and this is being allowed to happen. Well, what type of ideology are you putting in people? What type of thinking are you putting in people? Because again, where we at right now as a generation, I'm a millennial. It's certain things that I'm definitely going to do if I got to do them, but I'd be damned if my son going to do them.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't be in 2025 having people do the same things and bend over and take the same lashings that people been taking. Now, are you going to have to take some lashings? Yes, absolutely, because that's a part of life. You're gonna have to take some sacrifices and make some and make some compromises. But people, I know for a fact they're gonna be in these comments saying, "Oh well, no, that's happening." No, it's not. No, it's not. And if it is happening, please show me where, because I haven't seen it. Because everything I've seen up until this point is people saying, "Oh, I've seen," like I said, handlers, people being able to mentor, and somebody got an issue with somebody and they call somebody up and they say, oh yeah, take that down offline. Oh yeah, don't do that. Don't say that. Because if you say that, that person will be mad. So you gotta walk this way. You gotta bend over. Or you got move with your head down, Fred. Nigga, didn't you move with your head down and your father move with your head down? What the fuck we gonna hold our head up?
Let me ask you this. What's your thoughts on the shutdown and the Dems response? Do you feel like they kind of let them down? Yeah.
This piss poor. Like, again, in the midst of the shutdown, we understand that, yes, it is strategic. It's always been strategic, even when Democrats have done it. But it's all a posturing on not caring about the people. But the problem is that if you know, bro, that you got three elements to pick from, and your opposition has created a ecosystem where you only have those three, why are y'all still operating in those three? Y'all too predictable. But then you want to keep crying, and at the same time that the government shutdown is looming, y'all motherfuckers is partying.
Yo,
Seriously.
bro, when you break it down like that, bro, That's crazy. Hey, I might have to make a post about that, bro.
Because it's
Yeah,
because it's like,
yeah.
what are we talking about? So we got
Is this
all
a
of this
time?
stuff going.
Is this a real time to party right now?
And
You
again,
know what
because
I'm saying?
again, people say, "Oh, well, we can do both." I'm not saying that one can't. I'm not saying that you can't party, but what I'm saying is priorities, people.
Mm-hmm.
If all of this
Mm-hmm.
is, and again, I'm using y'all words. If y'all the ones telling me that the house is on fire, if y'all the ones telling me that all of this authoritarianism and all of this fascism, I'm conceding to your argument. I'm letting you have an argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Why the fuck are we partying then? Why are y'all just still complaining? If it's been 400 years, bro, if it's been 200, 300, however many years a person want to profess to me, I'm going to concede because I agree. But if that's the case, why are we acting like this is new? Why are we acting like this is some grandiose innovation? Why are we? Yeah, because and then my next question is, okay, if y'all have been, and this is to my elders directly, and I know none of them can't bang with me, and that's why they won't put me on, and that's why they won't elevate me, because none of them can bang. It's only a few, very few people that I actually respect up here. Like up here, when it comes to this, very few. Because the question that I got to all of them is, I live in the fumes of y'all exhaust, meaning I've been following y'all instructions since I was a kid, meaning I and we have been literally living in the consequence of your decisions, right? Y'all been doing it this way for however long. But you want to tell me I need to continue doing it this way. You know how many elders be like, oh, well, you got to do it this way. You get more bees with honey, or you do it this way. Well, how many motherfucking bees y'all got? The last time I checked, motherfucking the bees getting stomped out too. Ain't the bees extinct? Last time I checked, the motherfuckers, we talking about nature. Because guess what? The way y'all been doing it, the way we've been doing it, the way y'all keep saying, oh yeah, you got to do it this way. Well, how that work out for you? That's why I don't be mad about Trump.
Do you think it's fear? Do you
I
think it's
know it's
fear?
fear. And I call it straight cowardice. I know it's cowardice. And they don't like me because I'm willing to say that it's cowardice. Because guess what? When you know something is the way that it is, and your only thing to say is just, oh no, you're gonna keep being passive, but you want to be aggressive with me though. You'll keep me from eating. You'll cut me off. You'll stop me from shining. Because we'll do that to each other. But when you got that dollar dangling in your face from that white liberal or whoever the fuck, you gonna bend over, you gonna take it, you gonna easy, greasy, peasy, 1, 2, 3.
Right.
But you want to talk trash to me. Miss me with that. Miss me with it. If we want to pull off and just call it what it is, because a lot of people want to do this whole thing about, oh, you got, again, I get that sometimes you got to approach people with decorum. But y'all want to, these are the same people who want to say whatever they want to everybody else.
Yeah. It's almost like you want to poke out your chest with it's like you picking and choosing who you want to be a bully to. Yeah, you picking and choosing you want to be a bully to. So I get that.
It's cool.
Look, I gotta wrap up.
Me.
I gotta wrap up, bro. I appreciate the time, man. I appreciate the time. Good. I'm gonna hit you. I want you to come on the show, man. So you know what I'm saying? Whenever you're free, the next episode of mine is gonna be actually on the date of my accident. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be a year later, and I'm gonna do that show solo and just basically go down everything. You seen the pictures and everything, so
I have.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like even coming to work this morning was emotional, man. Cause it was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, I be in pain. I be having my days where I'm hurt, and I was just be like, I be feeling pain, but it's like I be grateful that I'm able to feel pain because I might be the other alternative would be nothing.
Gone.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I'm about to get off, man. I'm about to head to the gym like you get it in, man. I'm down 30 pounds, bro.
You already know. I got mine in early. But
how many miles you do?
Only did 7 a day. I did half because I said I try to give my body a rest. I usually do a half marathon, but I try to every once in a while take it slow so my body can rebuild. I started my creatine journey. We got to get around to our health jump because you sent me that one too.
Yeah. Next one. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold you up, but I want everybody
Go-
who is and will be watching to reflect on, not just prioritizing being the loudest, being the most seen, being the most flashy. Really focus on and understand who you are as a person and your skill set, and not always try to outdo somebody. Man, think about strategically how can you impact and be impactful to your brother, your sister, your neighbor, etc. It's not always just who can make the most cash. And because a lot of people going to ask for solutions, and that's one of the solutions. It may not sound like one, but just think, think, be aware, and not just moving based on your own first primal instinct. And that's what I want to leave people with today. Again, get it however you got to get it in the most practical way, but also take a time to step back and reflect, because as times get harder, it is definitely going to get more in the trenches, and people are going to be pressured to make moves in ways that might not necessarily be in your best interest in the long run, because what might seem sweet on the front end is not always the best things that we can do. And you can take that from me. I am not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But thank you, bro. I appreciate you for coming on again. I love having these conversations with you.
Yes,
I'm
sir,
gonna let
bro.
you get out of here. Go ahead, take care of your body, mind, and spirit. And again, I appreciate you, love you, and I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna wrap
Love,
everything
bro.
up.
Okay. All right, bro. Peace.
Yep.